All right, and we are live. I'm just making sure we can be seen across all platforms. We are live. I am Marcus Holmes, and as a part of the Love and Stuff community and the HR Passion LLC family, I want to welcome you to our Black History Month moments. We've been doing these moments all month long. Yesterday, our moment was a part of our Valentine's Day celebration. So those of you that attended that, thank you so very much. And I'm just looking across platforms just to make sure, okay, that we're doing okay. I see that Brenda Meller. Oh, I'm so excited that she's come. Thank you so much. Come again. Thank you so much. A marketing guru. I hope one day to have her on. I need her help. No, but I really appreciate you coming, and all of you, whether you are on LinkedIn Live, on Twitch TV, on YouTube events, on Facebook, on the Marcus R. Holmes page, or the Love and Stuff page, where our Love and Stuff Black History moments have come from. I thank you for tuning in today, and I hope that you will click share and tag someone to go along this journey for these remaining 13 or so days. Each evening at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have a Black History moment. And we really appreciate everyone in our collective. There are diverse minds and experiences and beliefs and ethnicities, but we wanted to, in this month especially, to highlight the unique and special contributions of African Americans and persons of African descent to the great American story. And what a varied and sometimes harrowing and sometimes victorious story that we have here in America. So if you are watching us overseas, we have folks in Nigeria. Thank you so much. I know it is probably morning there, and those that are on the West Coast of the United States, it's probably afternoon or mid-afternoon there. So wherever you may be watching, thank you so much. And I again ask that you will just share this content with someone else. Today, we are excited to have you here with us. And we have decided this week starts our look at public figures. Some of them will be politicians, some of them will be celebrities. Some people say politicians are celebrities, another whole discussion. Some of them will be pastors, but just public figures that have made unique contributions, unique struggles, have contributed great brilliance and excellence and intelligence to the work of our country, the work of freedom, the work of equality, and the work of racial justice. And some that were just trying to make the very best of the situation and circumstances that were dealt to them, and ended up making a Herculean effort and impact on our world. Voters have elected their senators in the privacy of the voting booth since 1914. Prior to that time, state legislatures chose their senators. Beginning in the 1850s, this process began to break down as political infighting and corruption often left Senate seats vacant for long periods of time. Reform efforts finally succeeded in 1913 with the adoption of the 17th Amendment to the Constitution that provided for direct popular election of senators. So I don't know if everybody knew that, but I'm bringing some history lesson to bear. Hiram Rhodes Revels was born September 27, 1827. He was a Republican U.S. Senator, minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church, or the AME Church, and a college administrator. Born free in Fayetteville, North Carolina, he later lived and worked in Ohio, where he voted before the Civil War. He became the first African American to serve in the U.S. Congress when he was appointed to the United States Senate as a Republican to represent Mississippi in 1870 and 1871 during the Reconstruction era. Revels was born to free people of color, with ancestors who had been free since before the American Revolution. His parents were of African American, European, and Native American ancestry. His mother was also specifically of Scottish descent. His father was a Baptist preacher. Revels was taught by a local Black woman for his early education. In 1838, he went to live with his older brother, Elias B. Revels, in Lincolnton, North Carolina, and was apprenticed as a barber in his brother's shop. Being a barber during that time was considered a respectable, steady trade for Black Americans. After Elias died in 1841, his widow Mary transferred the shop to Hiram before she remarried. Revels attended the Beecher Grove Quaker Seminary, a school in Union County, Indiana, founded by Quakers, and Darke County Seminary in Ohio. In 1945, he was ordained as a minister in the AME, or African Methodist Episcopal Church, and he served as a preacher and religious teacher throughout the Midwest in Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Tennessee, Missouri, and Kansas. He writes, or wrote at the time, "At times I met with a great deal of opposition. I was imprisoned in Missouri in 1854 for preaching the gospel to Negroes, though I was never subjected to violence," unquote. He became a minister in the Methodist Episcopal Church in Baltimore, Maryland, where he served also as a principal of a Black high school. During the American Civil War, Revels served as a chaplain in the United States Army. He took part at the Battle of Vicksburg in Vicksburg, Mississippi, which was such interest to me because my parents are from Vicksburg and Natchez, Mississippi. During the Civil War, he helped to organize 2 regiments of the United States colored troops and served as its chaplain. In 1966, he was called as a permanent pastor at a church in Natchez, Mississippi, where he settled with his wife and 5 daughters. He became an elder in the Mississippi district of the Methodist Church and continued his ministerial work, founding schools for Black children. During Reconstruction, Revels was elected alderman in Natchez in 1868. In 1869, he was elected to represent Adams County in the Mississippi State Legislature as a senator. As the Congressman John R. Lynch later wrote of Revels in his book on Reconstruction, he writes, quote, "Revels was comparatively a new man in the community. He had recently been stationed at Natchez as pastor in charge of the AME Church, and it was not well known that he had ever voted. He had never attended a political meeting and, of course, had never made a political speech. But he was a colored man and presumed to be Republican and believed to be a man of ability and considerably above the average in point of intelligence, just the man, it was thought, the Reverend Noah Buchanan would be willing to vote for," unquote. In January 1870, Revels presented the opening prayer in the state legislature. Lynch wrote, quote, "That prayer, one of the most impressive and eloquent prayers that had ever been delivered in the Mississippi Senate chamber. That prayer made Revels a United States Senator. He made a profound impression upon all who heard him. It impressed those who heard it that Revels was not only a man of great natural ability, but that he was also a man of superior attainments," unquote. I smile and am excited because I want you to hold on to that, because I think thinking about Hiram Revels might remind you of someone else as we talk a little bit more. Hiram Rhodes Revels, the first African American to serve, was elected by the Mississippi State Legislature, to succeed Albert G. Brown, who resigned during the Civil War. When Revels arrived in Washington, D.C., Southern Democrats in office opposed seating him in the Senate. For the 2 days of debate, the Senate galleries were packed with spectators at this historic event. The Democrats based their opposition on the 1857 Dred Scott decision by the United States Supreme Court, which ruled that people of African ancestry were not and could not be citizens. They argued that no Black man was a citizen before the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, and thus rebels could not satisfy the requirement of the Senate for 9 years prior citizenship. Supporters of rebels made arguments ranging from relatively narrow and technical issues to fundamental arguments about the meaning of the Civil War. Among the more narrow arguments was that rebels was a primary European ancestry, an octoroon, and that the Dred Scott decision should be interpreted as applying only to those Blacks who were of totally African ancestry. Supporters said that rebels had long been a citizen, as shown by his voting in Ohio, and that he had met the 9-year requirement before the Dred Scott decision changed the rules and held that Blacks could not be citizens. The more fundamental argument by rebel supporters was that the Civil War and the Reconstruction Amendments had overturned Dred Scott. Because of the war and the amendments, they argued, the subordination of the Black race was no longer part of the American constitutional regime, and therefore it would be unconstitutional to bar rebels on the basis of the pre-Civil War Constitution's citizenship rules. One Republican senator supported rebels, mocked opponents as still fighting the last battlefield of that war. U.S. Senator Charles Sumner from Massachusetts said, quote, "The time has passed for argument. Nothing more needs to be said. For a long time, it has been clear that colored persons must be senators," unquote. Sumner, a Republican, later said, quote, "All men are created equal, says the Great Declaration, and now a great act attests this verity. Today, we make the Declaration a reality. The Declaration was only half established by independence. The greatest duty remained behind. In assuring the equal rights of all, we complete the work," unquote. On February 25th, 1870, rebels, on a party line vote of 48-8, with Republicans voting in favor and Democrats voting against, became the first African American to be seated in the United States Senate. Everyone in the galleries stood to see him sworn in. In his maiden speech to the Senate on March 16th of that same year, he argued for the reinstatement of the Black legislators of the Georgia General Assembly, who had been illegally ousted by white Democratic Party representatives. He said, quote, "I maintain that the past record of my race is a true index of the feelings which today animate them. They aim not to elevate themselves by sacrificing one single interest of their white fellow citizens," unquote. He served on both the Committee of Education and Labor and the Committee on the District of Columbia. At the time, the Congress administered the district. Much of the Senate's attention during that time focused on Reconstruction issues. While radical Republicans called for continued punishment of ex-Confederates, rebels argued for amnesty and a restoration of full citizenship, provided they swore an oath of loyalty to the United States. Rebels' term lasted only 1 year, from February of 1870 to March 3rd of 1871. He quietly and persistently worked for equality. The Northern press praised rebels for his oratorical abilities. His conduct in the Senate, along with that of the other Black Americans who had been seated in the House of Representatives, prompted a white congressman, James G. Blaine from Maine, to write in his memoir, quote, "The colored men who took their seats in both Senate and House were, as a rule, studious, earnest, ambitious men whose public conduct, would be honorable to any race," unquote. Revels supported bills to invest in developing infrastructure in Mississippi, to grant lands and right of way to aid the construction of the New Orleans and Northeastern Railroad, and to build levees on the Mississippi River. On February 14, 1879, a Republican senator from Mississippi presided over the Senate. In this instant, the Senate's customary practice of rotating presiding officers during routine floor proceedings set an important milestone. The senator who temporarily assumed those duties had a personal background that no other senator before or since could claim. He had been born into slavery. Revels accepted in 1871 after his term as U.S. Senator expired, appointment as the first president of Alcorn Agricultural and Mechanical College, now Alcorn State University, a historically Black college located in Claiborne County, Mississippi, and he served as president from 1871 to 1873, and again from 1876 to 1882. Hiram Rhodes Revels died on January 16, 1901, while attending a church conference in Aberdeen, Mississippi. He was buried at the Hillcrest Cemetery in Holly Springs, Mississippi. To date, 11 African Americans have served in the United States Senate. In 1970, Hiram Revels of Mississippi was the first. 5 years later, Blanche K. Bruce of Mississippi, who was born into slavery, took the oath of office. It would be nearly another century, 1967, before Edward Brooke of Massachusetts followed in their historic footsteps. Carol Moseley Braun broke new ground in 1993, becoming the first African American woman to serve as a U.S. Senator. In 2005, Barack Obama of Illinois became the fifth African American to serve and third to be popularly elected. Upon Obama's resignation to serve as the nation's first African American president, Roland Burris was appointed to fill the vacancy, becoming the sixth African American senator and the third to occupy the same Illinois seat. Tim Scott of South Carolina was appointed to fill the vacancy in 2013, becoming the first African American since Reconstruction to represent a Southern state in the Senate. The appointment of Massachusetts Senator William Moe Cohen on February 1st, 2013, marked the first time that two African Americans have served simultaneously in the United States Senate. Cory Booker of New Jersey became the ninth African American senator when he won a special election to replace Senator Frank Lautenberg on October 31st, 2013. Kamala Harris, our current vice president, became California's first African American senator on January 3rd, 2017, bringing the number of African Americans serving simultaneously to 3 and the total number of African American senators to 10. And in January 2021, Raphael Warnock, the Right Reverend Raphael Warnock of Georgia, won a runoff election to complete the term of Johnny Eichson, bringing the total number of African American senators to 11. I wanted to put that pin in your mind earlier when we talked about Hiram Rhodes Revels doing an opening prayer that was characterized as pretty much opening the door for him to becoming the United States Senator. And both his citizenship and his qualifications were challenged. Does that sound familiar? We see a senator, a new senator, Barack Obama, making a captivating speech at the Democratic National Convention, and people saying, who is this person? And him becoming the next president of the United States. not a well-known person at that time. And people challenged whether or not his citizenship, maybe not as much as they challenged Hiram Rhodes Revel, but there was this challenge of where is his birth certificate? Where is his record? Prove that he is eligible and qualified to hold this office. Even though he was eligible and qualified to become a senator, Justice Hiram was eligible and qualified to become a state senator. He had voted in Ohio during the time of the Civil War, before the Civil War. But yet he was challenged right there in the Senate chamber as to whether or not he could sit because of the Dred Scott decision, which effectively was overturned. It's as if this excellence in our history has always had to be qualified, to be above and beyond qualified to satisfy the majority. And I wanted to bring that contrast to you because it's like history was repeating itself in some ways, that the brilliance, the intelligentsia, the charisma, the articulation, the eloquence, no matter how impressive and no matter how well bred, well thought, well studied, that there would be some question as to whether or not there were that those candidates met the qualifications. It's important to know our history, and it's important to know that there are those that might not be as amenable to people who excel in history, in life, in organizations around the world because of their color. I am so grateful that there have been 11 senators, but 11 is a small number when you think of 100, isn't it? And not senators because they're Black, but not having to qualify extra rungs, go the extra mile because they are Black, African American, or of African American descent. So we salute all of these senators, those that have gone before us and those that serve currently, for making history and bringing to us a great Black history moment. I hope that you will join us tomorrow. We'll continue our look at public figures. Again, we will be looking at politicians. We will be looking at preachers and pastors. We'll also be looking at celebrities and others in the public eye that have made, maybe some that have come from backgrounds just as you have seen here, or many other backgrounds, and share with you some of their first and some of their unique contributions and sacrifices that they made that contributed greatly to this American culture. It is Black History Month, and this has been a Black History Moment. I am Marcus Holmes, and I hope that if you've enjoyed this moment, that you will share it widely and that you will come back tomorrow and every day the rest of this month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Closing out our month on February the 8th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be a culmination of all that we have discussed. It will close, I think, with a great bang, and you're in for a great treat if you will join us at 6 p.m. There will be music, there will be dramatization, there will be poetry, there will be dance, there will be different aspects of our history, all for a great story that I think you do not want to miss. So we invite you to join us. It'll be right on the Love and Stuff page and via Restream on our other platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you across all platforms. I'm just going to check the comments real quick. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.